Hey guys, the last few weeks I've had quite a number of people coming in with a variety of lower leg pains, so foot, heel, shin splints, calf pains and this kind of thing. So I thought I'd just make a little bit of a video, but as usual I got carried away and it's now going to be two videos. This will be the first one. This is going up on Saturday night, so hopefully you're still around to watch. Part two will be out probably tomorrow night, Sunday evening. So lower leg pain is a huge topic. It literally could go on for days, but I'm just going to go through some of the causes and some of the self-help options and things that might be available just to do at home. By the way, if you wanted to find out more about me, Gavin Hewitt, please go to www.healthandperformance.com.au. As you can see on the slide there, you'll be able to find out a lot more about me. So this part one today is actually going to go into what I always think of as more global factors. So some of the bigger picture things that can really play a part in injuries. So we're going to focus on that tonight, and then tomorrow, or in part two, we're going to get into some of the more sort of local factors, such as tight muscles, technique, so on and so forth. But what I would say is, if you do have an injury or pain or discomfort, something like this, it's gonna you're gonna have a hard time to getting a full long-term recovery if some of these global factors that we're going to talk about now are causing an issue. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to part one. So global factors. So global factors are really driven by this concept of SRA, or stress recovery adaptation. So the idea with this is that we look at the stress, so we look at inducing a training stress. So going for a 5k run or a 10k run, or going to the gym and lifting weights or playing sport, whatever it might be, is a form of stress. It definitely has some benefits, so it's not a bad thing, but it's a form of training, is a form of stress that hopefully, if we get sufficient recovery, induces an adaptation, which is getting better. So it could be bigger, stronger, faster, fitter, having more endurance, whatever it might be. So for you guys running half and full marathons that have been coming in, hopefully the stress is actually a stimulus for your body to adapt and get fitter. Okay, so let's have a little look at each of these components, because I think as we go along, you'll probably start seeing some big clues as to why injuries might be occurring. So let's look at part one. So we're looking at stress. So looking at stress here, so a fantastic form of too much stress, too much training stress, is actually increasing your training frequency or your volume or the training intensity very quickly. So I have heard of and read about sort of people going from running 5Ks to a half marathon in 6 months. So by my maths, which isn't that great, but by my maths, sort of looking at going from 5Ks to half marathon, you're looking 500%, I think it might actually be 400%, but between 400 and 500% increase in 6 months. Okay, so percentages can often be show things out of context, so it's not going to get too carried away with an extra 400%. But if we were to apply this in a different context, let's just say we've got someone who's been training in the gym, doing some weight training, and we've got their squat. So after the initial few months of learning how to squat well and this kind of thing, we might say, okay, they might be squatting 60 kilos. So if we applied that 400 to 500% increase in 6 months, we would say, well, in 6 months, that 400% increase means that they should be squatting around 240 kilos. Now, that's not going to happen. As a strength conditioning coach, someone who teaches strength training and has a background in performance training, that's just not going to happen at all. Okay, so if we start looking at things from a realistic perspective, trying to increase your training frequency, volume, or intensity, either one of those, by 400 to 500% over 6 months is pretty big, So an absolute beginner might be able to do that, but if you've just started running 5Ks, you would have been, running for maybe a few weeks, couple of months, something like this, to get to that 5Ks anyway. So you're sort of about 2 months would be about a third of the way through that beginner phase where you just keep getting better and better every week. That's not really sustainable for years and years, of course. So basically, if you've sort of all of a sudden increased your training frequency, your training volume or intensity very quickly, that might just be putting a little bit too much training stress. That's providing too much of a stimulus that you just can't recover from appropriately. Okay. The other thing I'll just mention here as well with running in particular is that running is quite unique compared to, say, rowing or riding, cycling or swimming, some of these other sort of more endurance-based sports. Because with running we have what's called an eccentric portion. So basically that's when your foot swings through and lands and absorbs force. Okay, so with running we've got this component of absorbing force. Now, to give you an idea of how much of a stress that can be and how different that can be compared to just keeping fit, doing some general cross training. If we look at absorbing force as opposed to generating force, if I give you more of a practical example here, imagine if you were holding a 5 kilo medicine ball and you were to throw that medicine ball as hard as you possibly could. So that would be generating force. Now let's imagine that you're standing maybe a couple of meters away and you're going to catch that medicine ball, that 5 kilo medicine ball. You're going to catch that ball while it's going at the same speed you threw it at. Okay, so now we're absorbing force. So I think we would all agree that throwing that 5 kilo medicine ball as hard as you can is going to be a lot easier than trying to catch it. And I think we'd probably also agree that you're going to have to do considerably more work in terms of bracing, coordination, these kinds of things to catch that ball. Okay, so hopefully that's a nice sort of easy example to follow that shows how sort of generating force is a little easier than absorbing it. Okay, but if we've all of a sudden just started running or increased our running quite quickly, so that is sort of going from that 5Ks to maybe half marathon in 6 months. That's a large increase over time. Now, when we look at absorbing the force, so we have that landing component, that's called the eccentric component. So the eccentric of anything, whether it's running or weightlifting or whatever it might be, actually overloads and stresses the connective tissue. Okay, so your connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, etc., are going to be put under considerably more stress in an eccentric environment where we're absorbing force than an environment where they're in a concentric component, or another way would be generating force. Okay, so basically you're running fairly quickly over time can certainly put a high load on connective tissue. So with some of the injuries that we see coming in, there definitely can be some connective tissue components to that. Okay, so this is just just touching on a few things that can be causing too much of a training stress. All right.